The ordinary man who became the world's greatest investor. If you walked past him on the street, you probably wouldn't recognize him. No designer clothes, no luxury watches, no private island lifestyle. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958. He eats fast food, drinks Coca-Cola almost every day, starts his mornings reading newspapers, and despite being one of the richest people in history, he has spent decades living a life that looks surprisingly ordinary, but appearances can be deceiving because behind that simple lifestyle is one of the most extraordinary minds the financial world has ever seen. A man who turned a few $1,000s into a fortune worth well over $100 billion. Not by inventing the next smartphone, not by creating a revolutionary technology, but by mastering something far more difficult: patience. This is the story of Warren Buffett, the man known around the world as the Oracle of Omaha. Long before he became one of the wealthiest people on earth, Warren Buffett was just a curious boy growing up in Omaha, Nebraska. But even as a child, he saw money differently. While most children spent their allowance on toys, Warren wanted to understand how money itself worked. At just 6 years old, he bought packs of Coca-Cola from his grandfather's grocery store. Then he walked door to door, selling each bottle individually for a small profit. It wasn't about the money, it was about the game, the thrill of making something grow. That fascination only intensified. By age 11, he bought his very first stock, 3 shares of City Service Preferred. He watched the price fall almost immediately. Panicking, he sold after it recovered slightly. Moments later, the stock continued climbing. It was a painful lesson, one that stayed with him forever. The market rewards patience, not panic. As Buffett grew older, his obsession became impossible to ignore. He wasn't reading comic books. He was reading financial reports, balance sheets, stock tables, business newspapers. By the time most teenagers were deciding what college to attend, Buffett had already read nearly every investing book he could find. Then one day, he discovered a book that would completely change his life, The Intelligent Investor, written by Benjamin Graham. The book introduced a revolutionary idea: stocks are not lottery tickets, they are pieces of real businesses, and if you understand the business, you can understand its value. For Buffett, it felt like discovering the rules to a game everyone else was guessing at. He immediately knew he had found his life's work. Determined to learn from the author himself, Buffett applied to study under Benjamin Graham at Columbia University. There, he absorbed every lesson, not just about finance, but about temperament, because Graham believed investing wasn't primarily about intelligence, it was about emotional control. Anyone can buy when prices are rising. Very few people can stay calm when markets collapse. Buffett mastered that lesson, and it became one of the greatest advantages of his career. After graduating, Buffett desperately wanted to work for Benjamin Graham. At first, he was rejected. Imagine that. The man who would become the world's greatest investor was told no, but Buffett didn't quit. Eventually, Graham offered him a job. For Buffett, it was like a young basketball player getting coached by Michael Jordan. Those years shaped everything that followed. He learned to think independently, ignore the crowd, focus on value, and never confuse price with worth. When Benjamin Graham retired, Buffett returned to Omaha. Most ambitious young investors would have stayed on Wall Street. Buffett chose home. From a small office, he began managing money for family and friends. The results were remarkable. Year after year, his partnerships outperformed the market, not because he took huge risks, but because he avoided unnecessary ones. That may sound simple, but in investing, avoiding mistakes is often more important than making brilliant decisions. Then came one of the most important moments of his career. A struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. At first, Buffett bought shares because they looked cheap. It was supposed to be a short-term investment. Instead, it became the foundation of an empire. Over time, Buffett transformed Berkshire Hathaway from a failing textile mill into one of the largest holding companies in the world. Insurance, railroads, energy, manufacturing, retail, technology. Today, Berkshire owns or holds major stakes in dozens of world-class businesses, companies that millions of people interact with every single day. Not because Buffett chased trends, because he bought businesses he understood. One of Buffett's greatest strengths wasn't predicting the future, it was understanding people. He knew fear and greed drove markets far more than logic. When everyone became excited, he became cautious. When everyone panicked, he became interested. This philosophy produced one of his most famous quotes: "Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful." Simple words, extraordinarily difficult to follow. Because investing isn't a battle against the market, it's a battle against yourself. Another thing that makes Warren Buffett unique is how little he changes. In a world obsessed with constant movement, Buffett waits. He often says the stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. Think about that. Every day, millions of investors buy, sell, react, guess. Meanwhile, Buffett spends most of his day reading annual reports, books, newspapers, research. He once estimated that he spends around 80% of his working day simply thinking and reading. To many people, that sounds unproductive. To Buffett, that's where the real work happens. Despite becoming one of the richest people alive, Buffett never became obsessed with luxury. He still lives in the Omaha house he bought in 1958. He has often joked about stopping at McDonald's for breakfast based on how the stock market performed the previous day. It's not because he can't afford more, it's because wealth never became his identity. To Buffett, money is simply a byproduct of rational decisions repeated consistently over time. Perhaps the most remarkable chapter of his life came later, after accumulating one of history's largest fortunes, Buffett announced he would give away nearly all of it. Not after his death, during his lifetime. He pledged the vast majority of his wealth to philanthropy, primarily through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other charitable organizations. It became one of the largest charitable commitments ever made. For Buffett, success was never measured only by net worth. It was measured by usefulness, by impact, by what remained after the money was gone. So, who is Warren Buffett? He's not just an investor. He's proof that extraordinary results don't always come from extraordinary complexity. Sometimes they come from doing simple things with extraordinary consistency, reading every day, thinking independently, ignoring distractions, being patient when others panic, staying humble when others celebrate, learning continuously, and letting time do the heavy lifting. Because while the world searched for shortcuts, Warren Buffett trusted something much slower, something much less exciting, compounding, not just of money but of knowledge, character, discipline, and wisdom. In the end, that may be his greatest lesson. The biggest fortunes, the strongest reputations, and the most meaningful lives are rarely built overnight. They're built one thoughtful decision at a time. And perhaps that's why Warren Buffett remains one of the most admired people in modern history. Not because he became rich, but because he showed the world a better way to think.